This video is a part of a series that helps dinghy sailors onto the path to becoming bareboat charter skippers. The entire series is contained in this playlist here. If you have any comments or feedback for us, please share them and help make the next video that much better. Enjoy! Dinghies. Always bring your paddles. Always bring your paddles. You never know when you're going to need them. You never know when the engine's going to quit. You never know when it's just going to run out of gas. You never know when it's just going to be stubborn. If there's any chance that it's going to be dark, you want to bring a headlamp or a flashlight. And I suggest bringing a second one because I've had my headlamp stop working, and then I had a 2-mile dinghy ride in the dark. Luckily, someone else had brought the flashlight along as well. Always kind of check where you're going before you go there, especially if it's going to be at night. Just look at the chart, see if there's anything that you have to avoid, see if there's, kind of get a sense of if you can follow the anchorage and get to where you're going, or if there's some, you can go straight there from your boat. Just take a look at the charts, and even better, if you have your charting app on your smartphone, which you probably should, just take a look, just take it with you. Buy a waterproof case that wraps around your neck, and you'll have it right there, so in case you get a little bit disoriented, it's ready to go. The dinghies come with small anchors and a pump. You can bring them. The anchor is more of a convenience. It's not really useful for any kind of emergency situations. And the pump is only really necessary if you have like a slowly leaking dinghy. If you have a slowly leaking dinghy and you know it, you should yell at the charter company and maybe they'll bring you a new one. But definitely bring the pump if they don't. All right.
What charting app do you use?
What charting app do I use? In the British Virgin Islands, I use Navionics. I use MX Mariner here in the US, but they don't have coverage in the British Virgin Islands. So for the dinghy trip, make sure you check your fuel level. If you have, and if you can, just refuel the tank, refuel the engine before you go. It's just a good idea. You don't want to run out of fuel on your dinghy. And again, I guess I already covered the charts. Bring your chart plotter. So I'm going to go to the next one. Okay, dinghy transport, to get to your question. Ask your charter company how they want you to transport it. Some boats will have setups for how to transport them. Some places they'll tell you specifically if you go on this passage, take the motor off, deflate the dinghy, bring it on deck. Whatever the rules are, follow them. Most of the time in the British Virgin Islands, they're going to tell you just to tow it behind you and leave the engine in. Take the engine out. Just take the engine out. You don't want to get out there in a situation and have to try and, you're like, oh, there's 3-foot seas. Now we should probably take the engine out or the dinghy's going to flip. And then you're going to be standing in the dinghy holding an engine in 3-foot seas trying to hand it up to the guy who's standing on the boat. It's just, we've done that. It's not fun. Don't do it. Just take it out while you're still in the protected anchorage. Anyway. And then the drain plug too. If you're going to take the engine out, you might as well take the drain plug out, which keeps water that kind of splashes in from like waves that you're dragging the dinghy through from accumulating and slowing you down. That's a lot easier to fix underway, granted, but you might as well do it before you leave. Did that answer your question? So, ultimately the last word on it is ask the charter company what they want you to do, and then do that. Do at least that. So dinghies are where you're actually going to use your mix or fix-it skills. If your boat breaks, call the charter company. You pay them a lot of money. They have people who can fix the boat. Even if you're 40 miles away from their base, they'll have someone on that island who can fix your boat. Do it. You don't want to be messing around in the engine. Yes?
How do you call the charter company?
You can use the VHF radio, and they'll give you a cell phone that will work. So you have 2 options. That's later in the slides too. But for the dinghy, odds are pretty good that the dinghy is going to be a little temperamental and you're going to have to mess with it. So that's where your kind of mechanical skills get used. Know how to detach and bleed the fuel system. Know how to work the choke, know when to work the choke, how to get the engine running. Make sure the outboard is spitting cooling water out when you get it started. The intake for the cooling is like a little tiny hole in the bottom, and it can get plugged up really easy with a little piece of seaweed, and it can get unplugged really easily by you just pulling it out. So just check that before you go. make sure you close the fuel cap. Because if you don't close the fuel cap, and specifically the air vent in the fuel cap before you tilt the engine up, fuel is going to leak out, and it's a fuel oil mixture, so that's going to get to the bottom of the dinghy and make it a slippery mess. But more importantly, that fuel will get into the air filter, and then the dinghy engine won't run. And then you're going to be sitting there calling sea tow from your dinghy, or possibly rowing across Hull Gut, going and picking up your friend, and then rowing back with the environmental police yelling at you about how you don't have enough life jackets and you're a fool for rowing across Hull Gut in a dinghy. Ask me how I know. All right. Wear foot protection when you go ashore in the dinghy. Docks have sharp things. Shorelines have sharp things. Glass, broken glass, pieces of metal, pieces of coral, shells. There's so many things that can cut your feet and ruin at least a large part of your vacation. Again, ask me how I know. Be careful in surf zones. There was a video that I kind of showed earlier where there's surf crashing into a bunch of people and they're laughing and it's funny. But if that same 2-foot wave is crashing onto the beach when you're bringing your dinghy up to it, you're going to kind of flip it over, maybe get everyone thrown out. Dana's smiling. Dana knows what I'm talking about. Renee, were you on that one? No, I don't think you were. Yeah. So be very careful coming into surf zones. You know, have people swim the rest of the way ashore, or just be very careful in the timing of bringing the dinghy ashore. And make sure that you can identify your dinghy, especially in the British Virgin Islands. There's a lot of them, like hundreds that can be tied up to one dock. It's nice to know which one's yours. If you tie a glow stick to it, especially at night, you can really find it pretty quickly. Okay, any questions on the dinghy? All right, I'll hand this over to IK. There you go. It's
right.
very, very sensitive.
Yeah, I see
Don't
that.
grip it too tightly. Hello again. Thank you for watching this video. If you've appreciated this content, please let us know with a thumbs up or down in the comments so that we're encouraged to make our next presentation into a video as well. These take us a little bit of production time. We had to convince some of our friends to help out, borrow some gear and rent some other gear. But if you guys find it useful, we'll take the time and make our next presentation into a video as well. Oh, speaking of, if you're looking for the next video in the series, it's right here. Thank you, Seagull. This is the awkward pause. I don't know what else to say. Go to the next video. Hurry up and click. It's getting weird.